testimony will be heard today in the federal retrial of former LMPD detective Brett Hankison. He's charged with violating the civil rights of Breonna Taylor and her neighbors when he fired into Taylor's apartment in 2020.
The jury just heard from another former officer who was there during that deadly raid. That was yesterday. Jim Stratman is live for us this morning here in downtown with some details. And Jim, this was a key witness for the prosecution.
Yeah, and this is not the first time that this officer's been in this position either. The prosecution tried to use Miles Cosgrove's testimony yesterday to show that Brett Hankison could not have possibly known who or what he was firing at that night that Breonna Taylor died. Now, Cosgrove told the court that in looking at the apartment before that raid, he noticed that the window and the sliding glass door that Hankison fired into were covered with plastic blinds, making it difficult for you to see through. He told the court, quote, "You have to identify what you're shooting at because the risk is too high. You couldn't see into the apartment. I couldn't think of a reason I knew to shoot through the windows." The defense used Cosgrove's own termination from LMPD to discredit him. A statement from internal investigators said Cosgrove fired 16 shots at, quote, a distorted, shadowy mass after Taylor's boyfriend fired a single shot. Now, Taylor's cousin Kamal Wells was in the courtroom yesterday. He told us this retrial stands out because of the jury's engagement.
I feel like the jury right now is paying more attention, being more attentive to what's going on and what's being said, taking more notes than in the previous trials.
Prosecutors also called Breonna Taylor's sister, Janiyah Palmer, to the stand. Now, Palmer lived with Taylor at the time of the shooting. That testimony is expected to continue a little bit later on today when court picks back up. That is expected to be here in just a few hours. Eric and Grayson will, of course, have coverage throughout the day, beginning on WHAS11 News at noon.
Thank you so much. Another big story here for us this morning. Attorneys for one of the men charged in the Crystal Rogers case are providing a clearer picture of the scope of evidence. In a motion filed Friday, attorneys for Joseph Lawson say the witness folder alone contains more than 300 separate folders for different witnesses. But Lawson's attorneys say most of the evidence isn't relevant to his case. Joseph Lawson is fighting to have his trial separate from that of his father, Stephen Lawson, and Rogers' former boyfriend, Brooks Houck. The Lawsons are expected back in court on Friday. They are both charged with conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence in Rogers' death.
The 4 people who died in that Carrollton house fire last week have been identified. They are 42-year-old Jessica Sellers, 18-year-old Colton Sellers, 10-year-old Deacon Sellers, and 25-year-old Emily Boswell. That fire happened last Thursday near downtown Carrollton. Police officers were able to rescue a young girl from the home. She was taken to a hospital for treatment. Fire investigators have not yet determined the cause.
Indiana State Police are investigating after a Jeffersonville man was allegedly shot and killed by a teenager in New Albany. Indiana State Police say 30-year-old Jonte Trumbo was shot multiple times on West 8th Street yesterday morning. He later died at the hospital. A 17-year-old suspect is said to have stayed at the scene. He's now charged with possession of a gun by a felon, obstruction of justice, and false informing. Now, ISP is handling the investigation to allow New Albany police to focus on the other recent shooting near Harvest Homecoming. Here in Louisville, police are now treating a death investigation from the weekend as a homicide. Just before 9 Sunday morning, police responded to reports of a person down in the road on 18th Street in the Russell neighborhood. Officers found a man who they say was dead but had no obvious signs of injuries. Authorities now say they later learned the man died from gunshot wounds. Anyone with helpful information is urged to call the anonymous tip line at 574-LMPD.
6:06 now. The new Norton West Hospital will be admitting its first patients in less than a month, and some are already getting a first look inside. Tours opened up yesterday and filled up immediately. 600 people got to see that brand new facility and what it has to offer. It's right there at 28th and Broadway. It's the first hospital west of 9th Street in 150 years. Norton West Chief Administrative Officer Corinza Townsend says it's going to transform healthcare for so many people in West Louisville.
The biggest measurement of change will be less visits to the emergency department for primary care reasons, and that'll shift over into the specialists and primary care spaces in this office, that office that we're actually standing in with this beautiful artwork behind me.
Townsend tells us the hospital currently has 360 employees, which is enough for the hospital to open right now if it wanted to. If you missed the tour, there is a virtual option that'll be available on the 28th. There's also a block party scheduled for this Saturday to celebrate. They're also going to be unveiling a historical monument there. That's going to happen at 11 a.m. The block party itself will run from noon until 4.
Soon, the Louisville Metro Council will be asking for your input on the city's decision to reinforce a decades-old mask ordinance. The 1983 ordinance bans the public use of masks to conceal a person's identity. Metro government and LMPD recently chose to start enforcing it again after a deadly shooting outside the PRP male football game last month. The suspects wore medical masks during that shooting. 17-year-old Valley High student Aaron Esters Jr. was killed. The community is encouraged to discuss the ordinance as well as possible safety solutions at a meeting next Wednesday. That's at 4:30 at the Newburgh Community Center. You can sign up to speak in person or leave comments online. Just click the link in this story under the local news tab on our website to do that.